Welcome to the discussion of Part 6, Chapter 5. In this chapter, Raskolnikov and Svidrigailov had just left a conversation that they'd been having in a restaurant, and Svidrigailov tells Raskolnikov clearly in that conversation at the end, "Don't follow me. Whatever way I go, you go the opposite direction. Like, we're parting ways here." But as soon as he starts to walk, he turns around and sees that Raskolnikov is following him, and he's like, "What are you doing? I told you not to follow me." And Raskolnikov comes straight out with it, and he's like, laying his cards on the table, like, "I don't trust you, and I think you still have designs on my sister, and I'm not letting you out of my sight until I know what you're up to." And so Svidrigailov kind of threatens him. He's like, "Well, I could call the police." And Raskolnikov's like, "Call away." Raskolnikov's not afraid of the police, but he is afraid of what this guy wants to do with his sister Dounia. And so Svidrigailov realizes that he's not afraid. And he offers him help. He kind of threatens him like, "I could go to the police, but I could help you. Like, I don't want to go to the police. I want to help you through this time in your life. I can get you passage to America. I could go with you. I have friends." And Raskolnikov's like, "I'm going to go with you to your lodging. I'm going to see Sofya Semyonovna." And he said, "Well, she's not at home because I have made arrangements for the orphaned children to go to an orphanage, and the lady is also very interested in possibly helping. Sofya knows all about, what her situation was, and so Sofya herself was taking the children to go see her tonight, so she's not going to be at home." He's like, "Me, myself, I'm just going home for a few minutes. I'm just going to go grab some money, and then I'm going out to the islands. I have, plans tonight. And so I'm just going there for a moment, but, hey, you're welcome to walk with me." And so they do walk, and he's like, "Here's the staircase. There's where her apartment is. And, there's her landlady." And he kind of talks with the landlady. He's like, "See, she's not home." And he's like, "Yeah, come on in." And he makes a big point of like, "Here's me taking out one banknote. I'm going to the bank to cash it. And then I'm going out." And then they go out. Gets into a carriage. He's like, "You want to come with me in the carriage? I can drop you off somewhere." And finally, Raskolnikov is like, whatever this guy's up to, he's not going to do it today. So he just is like, no. And he starts to leave. And as soon as he starts to walk away, he gets into this, like, all in his mind and his thoughts, where he's not paying attention to anything that's going on around him. His typical, how he's been when he's out walking around. He just kind of walks randomly and isn't paying any attention. So much so that he is on the bridge, and so is his sister. They're facing each other, but he doesn't see her, and she sees him. And she's a little like, should I say something to him? And behind him, she sees Svidrigailov, who has stepped out of the carriage. He's sent the carriage away. He's only ridden like 100 feet from when he originally got into it. And he's motioning to her, like, to come to him, like, "Don't talk to Raskolnikov, just come to me." And so she's like looking at her brother, she's looking at Svidrigailov, and she passes her brother and she goes to Svidrigailov, and they round the corner, and she's like, "Okay, I'm here. I got your letter. I You can tell me what you want to tell me in the street. Like, this is as far as we go." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to tell you in the street. I need I need to tell you in private." And so he coerces her to come up to his flat. He's like, "Trust me, I'm going to bring you to Sofya Semyonovna. She's going to be home any minute if she's not already home." And so he, makes a point of like going to her and being like, "Oh, she's not at home. Well, she'll be home any minute. Just come to my lodging. I want to show you something." And so he walks her through his apartment, and he shows her how there's two open rooms. There's like an additional flat that is empty between his room and Sofya Semyonovna. And he's like, "Do you see that chair right up against the door?" And she's like, "Yes." And he's like, "I put that chair there, and I listened to their conversation, and I know his secret because he told her." And she's like kind of getting nervous now because she's starting to realize just how alone she is, that there is two huge rooms in between Sofya Semyonovna, if Sofya Semyonovna even comes back. So there's like nobody to really hear her on that side. And the landlady, there's like empty rooms between his flat and the landlady. And here she is in the room with him. But she's trying to be very brave and being very kind of defiant. Like, well, he's like, are you afraid? Like a little girl. She's like, no. And so she sits down and he sits far across the room from her, not threatening at all. And she's like, well, what do you have to tell me? Like, what is this secret? And he tells her about that he heard Raskolnikov tell Sofya Semyonovna that he had killed the landlady. And Dunia's like, I've heard this story before. It's utterly ridiculous. I didn't believe it when I heard it the first time. I understand why people thought that, suspected him, but I don't suspect him. I didn't believe it then, and I don't believe it from you. And he says, well, it's true. I heard him over a course of 2 days tell Sofya Semyonovna, but don't be worried. She's not going to tell, and I'm not going to tell. I can help him. I can take him to America. I can get passport. I can get passport for you and your mother. And he's like, but it all depends on you. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And he said, it depends on you. And she starts to get an understanding of exactly what he wants. He basically wants her to agree to be with him. And that he's like, I'll be your slave. I'll do anything for you. I've always loved you. And she said, this is, ridiculous, preposterous. I'm not going to do this with you. And then he begins to threaten her. And she gets pretty freaked out. She runs to the door and it's locked. And she's suddenly scared. Like, how did you lock this? We walked in this door. When were you even able to lock it? I've been here the whole time. And she says, where's the key? And he says, I don't remember where the key is. I've lost the key. She understands she's in a super precarious position. She starts to really get loud. And he says, nobody's here to hear you. The landlady on the other side is practically deaf, and Sofya's not home, and my landlady's not home, so nobody's going to hear you. And she says, well, I'll, report you. And he's like, who's going to believe you? Who's going to believe that you would come here on your own accord to that I would have been able to coerce you here? Everybody's going to think you came here on your own accord, because what lady would come? Any other reason would come to a man's lodging like this. It's not going to look good for you. Nobody's going to believe you. And so at this point, he's blackmailing her. And she backs up into a corner and she pulls out a gun. And he's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. And then he realizes it's his gun. And she says, I took it. He says, that's my gun. She says, no, it was Marfa Petronova's gun. And I took it after you killed her. And I went to the house, and you didn't own anything in that house. This was hers, and I took it because I knew what you were capable of. And he says, why? I didn't kill her. And she says, you were talking of poisons even before she died. You had already gone and procured them. And he's like, even if I had killed her, I would have done it for you. You would have been the reason, because I'm so in love with you. And he's really laying it on now. He's putting it all on the table, saying that, he's madly in love with her, and he's trying to remind her of, you felt it too in that moonlight night when the nightingale was singing. And she's like, no. And he's kind of starting to be almost like crushed. Like there's something that changes in him, and he's realizing that she's really saying no, that this threatening isn't going to work. She's turned the tables with the gun. And he says, well, then go ahead and shoot me. And he starts to take a step towards her, and she does shoot him, but she's not a very good aim. She's not used to shooting guns. And it grazes his head, and it begins to bleed, and he's shocked. And he says, well, you're going to have to try again. And he takes another step towards her, and she does go to shoot him again, but the gun locks up. And he's like, what are you going to do now? And she just doesn't know what to do. She just throws the gun away. She feels like it's helpless. Like he's telling her, like, I'm so much stronger than you. You're here alone. Nobody's going to hear you. I mean, he's basically telling her, like, this is going to happen whether you like it or not. This gun was her last shot and it's jammed. She doesn't know how to unjam this gun, probably. So she throws it aside in desperation, just frustration. And he comes up and he puts his arm around her waist and he pulls her to him and he's like, is there, and she's like, please let me go. She's just pleading with him. And he says, there's really no chance that you could ever love me. Like, after all this. And she says no. And he lets her go quickly. He goes to the window and he's looking out the window and he grabs the key from his coat pocket and he puts it on the table and turns his back to her again. And he said, make haste and go. And she just like is shocked. And he's like, make haste and go, make haste and go. Like, you have seconds before I change my mind. I can still have my way with you. This is your one shot. And before I change my mind, make haste and go. And she realizes that this is it. And so she grabs the key, lets herself out the door and runs out onto the street. And he turns around after she's left and looks at the gun, picks it up, realizes that there's one more shot in the gun and puts it in his coat pocket and he leaves as well. So we don't know what his plan is, who he plans on shooting, if anyone. And this is the end of the chapter. So stay with us. We're almost done. We've got such a little bit, tiny amount left of the book. So meet me in part 5 or part 6, chapter 6, and we'll see what happens next.